So what should we make of all of this? Dean Cheng, Senior Research Fellow on China's military and space capabilities at the Heritage Foundation, joins us now from Washington. Dean, given that we're unlikely to see this lab fall, let alone be affected by it or anyone be hurt by it, why should we be concerned?
I think the most dangerous source of concern here is the fact that the Chinese have allowed this 8.5-ton spacecraft to enter essentially uncontrolled. Other large objects that have re-entered in the past have done so under a controlled burn, so that basically you could predict where and when it would come down.
But it's happened for the United States as well. It's not just the US, China that has had this situation. I'm thinking back to 1979. So this kind of uncontrolled re-entry does happen.
Absolutely. But 1979 is 40 years ago. Current best practices for satellites, whether they are space labs or whether they are unmanned satellites entirely, is to either move them into what are sometimes termed graveyard orbits, where they will be stably in orbit for a very long time, or to bring them down with a very controlled burn so that you aren't left wondering where, between 42.7 degrees north and 42.7 degrees south, it ultimately will enter the atmosphere.
What do we know about why control was lost over this lab?
Well, this is another source of concern. So back in 2016, now almost 2 years ago, China informed the United Nations that it had lost telemetry with Tiangong-1. That was the sum total of their commentary. We actually don't know at this point. Was it a failure of communications packages? Was it basically end of life? Therefore, why it is that they don't have control over the spacecraft. They have indicated that there is still some amount of hydrazine, rocket fuel, which is, by the way, highly toxic, still on board, which is another source of concern because depending on how much of it burns, how much of the spacecraft burns up during re-entry, you could wind up spreading hydrazine over a swath of the Earth as well.
And are we any closer to knowing roughly when and where it will fall when it eventually does reach Earth?
I believe the Chinese Manned Space Engineering Office yesterday provided something on the order of the best estimate at this point, which is sometime either Easter Sunday or Monday, but even that is still probably has some error margins to it.